call the meeting to order. Are we live, Debbie?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much. With respect to the agenda, just one item under old business number 2. That was intended to actually just be a reporting out from our previous in-camera board meeting. So we'll move that to the reporting out of the in-camera meeting last week. Or to have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, we need to. Glenn is on holidays, catching fish somewhere in the Wild Pacific. So we're going to appoint a secretary treasurer this evening, and that will be Sherry Albert. We need to make a motion or anything.
you need to do that so that you can put motion so that this meeting comes in
Okay, all those in favor of making sure that I'll put a secretary treasurer for a limited time period.
Please,
Okay.
please, let me
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, so now we'll deal with the agenda. Have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we did have a in-camera board meeting last week to discuss the request for proposals that we received with respect to the operational review. And we did determine that we would select Sprott Consulting Services to conduct the operational review. So they will be getting in contact with Lang when he's back and working with the finance committee and on what procedures are on that basis. That's my report. Old business? No, we already passed the motion on that, so this is just reporting on. So now we'll move to old business, discussion of the report received by the Committee on Grade Structure. At our June 23rd board meeting, or was it July 2nd? I don't remember. June 23rd board meeting, we determined that we would have a special board meeting to have further discussions with respect to our discussion paper that we received, or the report that we received from the Committee on Grade Structure. So that's primarily why we're here this evening. So last week we had a superintendent liaison meeting with the board and some senior staff, and we talked about process going forward and how we would like to sort of see this meeting structured this evening. So what we thought we would try to do is look at our options that we received in the report and try to pare the list down to a few that we would like to send out to the public for consultation. So that's where our discussion starts this evening. So I've got some PowerPoint slides to help me focus for this evening. So I'll just look over there. Hopefully I can work this thing. So the information contained in this PowerPoint is not my own information. It all comes from the Committee on Grade Structure. It comes from Beargar Projections. And Ron Amos assisted the committee by preparing some projections for some of the models that we considered. So that's where some of this information comes from as well. So just thought we'd talk about history a little bit first. Where are we at with this process? So in January, we had a board decision to review the grade structure in the district. Through January and February, we worked with Jordan to develop a discussion paper. Jordan consulted us on some information that he felt we should sort of weigh in on when the discussion paper was prepared. And so that was presented to us in March. The board determined that we would release that discussion paper to the public to get some feedback with regards to the information contained in the report. Then at our April 2009 board meeting, based on the feedback we had received from the public, the board decided to establish the Committee on Grade Structure, which was chaired by Todd Roman, and their goal was to construct some viable options for us to consider that would be sustainable over the long term, 10 years from now. So in June, the committee's work came to conclusion and the report was presented to the board. At our board meeting, we didn't sort of weigh in on the report too much, except for to say that we should have further discussions and that we did feel that we wanted to consult the public about some aspects of that report or the report as a whole. So here we are this evening to discuss this report. So where are we going? Hopefully this evening the board will make some decisions with respect to the models that are contained in the report and what we're going to consult the public on. We would anticipate, I think, that over the next couple of months, the board would work with senior staff to develop the consultation process, and that would be announced on September the 8th. And on October the 27th, the board would, at our public board meeting, consider the feedback that we received from the consultation process and make some decisions with respect to grade structure. Not sure exactly what decision we might make, but we will have something to discuss and announce, I think, on that day. So this is just a synopsis of the options that were contained in the report. The report's been posted to our website. Trustees will have hopefully an opportunity to have a good look through the report and consider the contents. Just some things I noted in the bottom corner, things that the committee did not consider. They rejected the idea of magnet schools. They did not discuss any implications of all-day kindergarten should not be mandated by the government, and they did not discuss the 11-12 secondary model. So just a little context for us. Again, these are Beauregard numbers so that we can help with our thinking going forward. You can see that our elementary school is forecast by Beauregard to dip and then start to increase. And at the same time, our secondary enrollment will continue to decrease. So the trend is for future elementary increase in the next 10 years and secondary decrease. So that's just sort of captured in here. One of the things, so the board wanted some options that were would be good for 10 years, sustainable for 10 years, and the committee provided some options that would really be sustainable for 5 years. So we don't have any projections, demographic projections this evening that go past 2013. So maybe we can just keep these trends in mind as we consider the options that we're going to look at. The elementary school enrollment should increase after 2013. Secondary will decrease. We have a great French immersion program that continues to increase in our district. It's very popular. And we have some overcapacity hotspots in the district right now, and also some undercapacity challenges that are reflected in the report. So here is just basically a list of some of the things that the committee felt would be important to think about for any model, things that were common themes. It was interesting, the solutions to one issue often created another issue. I think that was quite astounding to most of us. How if you make a little change somewhere, really it does create an issue somewhere else. They talked about difficulty gauging specific costs, and they felt that it would probably be best left to our staff in order to determine what various costs would actually be associated with any changes we might consider. So the costs are not really contained in our current report. So this would be the first of the, I think we have 6 models that they prepared for us. Right, well, actually 7 models, but one of them was really a model because we felt we could recommend it because it was education and vital. So I just wonder, from the board's perspective, how you would like to proceed with this discussion. I wondered if, show you which one I would recommend we start with, this one right here, and see if this is a model that the board would actually want to consider, or if we would reject this one out of hand at this time. John?
So, can I just for clarification, maybe I don't need to say this out loud, so appreciate you putting this together, but this is your work that you put together for us, right?
Actually, it's what it is a compilation of the information that was provided to us by Beauregard and by the committee.
Right. But in terms of looking at the slide, the committee on grade structure commented on the recurring issues and themes, or other themes that they would have talked about.
They would have been specific to some of the other models. These were the ones that I believe captured any model. There was a section, if you recall, at the beginning of the report that talked about recurring themes. So many of those sentences on that slide would have been direct quotes from the report somewhere.
Just, Dr. Booth
Sorry,
is
sorry,
on
sir.
there.
Sorry, sir, this is a board meeting, so we'll be entertaining questions at the very end of the meeting, okay?
Nope, I wasn't gonna give you a question, man, I was gonna,
So, sorry, this is a board discussion, and we're happy to have you listen in, but we'll have some time at the end of the meeting. Thank you. So, yeah, anyone have any other comments or questions with regards to your information that I just presented? I'll try to keep my own ideas and biases out of that. It's just facts that we were presented to us. So we have these 6 or 7 models to consider. I think that personally, I don't think that the board should consider proceeding with a city high school with 2 grade middle school. I think I would be prepared this evening to reject that option. I don't know what anyone else thinks about that. Is there anyone here that would like to consider this option? Sorry, any board member here? I don't see anyone putting up their hands. Okay, so we could reject that one. Would anyone like to pick another model for the board to discuss? Whether you're for it or against it. You can start with 1.1 if you like, or somebody could put it in.
Well, I think I suggest that we just for consistency, simplicity, deal with it in the order that they appear.
And the order that they appear in the PowerPoint are exactly the order that they appear in the report. So the first one, status quo, schools listed to the left are high school. Schools listed down the middle are middle or secondary, junior secondary schools. Then we got elementary schools pushed over to the right. This is the only model that we have projections for to 2019, because this is what we have right now, and there are our course basis projections for what we have right now. The challenges there, some schools will be under capacity, some will be over capacity. Anyone have any comments or would like to make this respectful model?
So, again, I don't want to spend too much time on language, but status quo really implies that we change absolutely nothing. And we even, perhaps I'm reading between the lines, or just anticipating how things will unfold, even in the do nothing model, we still have to do something. Change over time. So as long as we have clarity on it.
The committee did recommend some changes to status quo, to make modified status quo as per this. There's some latitude in there, but this captures sort of some of the things that they were recommending, some discussions that we felt should take place at Lake Trail and from Cumberland, Brooklyn community.
Well, if I can continue that,
Yeah.
I don't see any way that we ought to exclude the status quo as something to consider, because it's a baseline for how we are now. And again, not commenting on the merits of it or anything else. But yes, if we choose to discount this one, then we're automatically into something that would be arguably most substantially different from status quo or whatever natural need to do.
Could you clarify, do you mean modified status quo or status quo?
Well, I'm looking at status quo. I'm looking at your 1.1 slide.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you feel that we should put that one out for public consultation, is that what you're saying?
Well, it is, again, just for clarity, it is what we have now. And if we can, it is the baseline from which we either move from or not. So I can see us not as a baseline mix or part of consultation.
Anyone else want to comment on 1.1? Graham?
Actually, one thing to the modified status quo. By asking the public to comment on the modified status quo, I would think that it's implicit that the status quo is included as well. Because we did ask the public to comment on status quo already in terms of the comprehensive feedback process that we already have. So trying to minimize duplication of feedback, wondering if other people would think that this would include, would have enough latitude for people to comment about current concerns. Because again, people can't comment on variations that we haven't been put forward. In terms of just about one step further, though, in terms of modifying status quo, and perhaps the other models as well, but this one in particular, I would also think it would be really important to include an opportunity for the public to comment on the possibility of moving boundaries in Comox from moving it back from Edmonton to McDonald, where it's traditionally. The committee noted on a couple of places that this would alleviate overcapacity in Highland and overcapacity at Isbell and undercapacity in Highland. And I think in order to avoid getting the possibility of yet another consultation process, if we could somehow include it as a component.
I think that we had some discussion that there would be further work required in order to put out a more comprehensive model to the public for consideration. I know Jordan was talking about that very thing about sort of talking about boundaries and, if we would consider closing a school in a model or whatever. And so that would absolutely have to be further fleshed out over the next couple of months before we would be able to put something out, I would think.
That's for me, the boundaries is a separate issue, because that will kind of cloud the mix and the grade structure. Because that's very much an emotional issue. You start shifting students from where they have been going to school with all their friends, a different school. It's actually one of the harder, it's actually harder to do a boundary change than it is to change the grade structures. I just assume leave that out of the mix for now. But I do agree that status quo, modified status quo should be part of the discussion.
Well, just to clarify, my interest is only to not only not confuse ourselves, but not to confuse the public. So if I understand correctly, Frank, how you're viewing it is that this status quo with modifications that apply to this that covers that all. So which takes us to the 1.2.
What do you think of that? You okay with that?
Yeah?
Just to clarify, in terms of boundary change, what I was referring to was just moving it back to exactly where it was before last year, so that Comox students go to Comox schools. As simple as that. But also recognizing what you're saying, Jenny, about the disruption. I think there would be a number of years until we could recognize the benefits in terms of distributing population. Because I agree with you, I don't think anyone who is now at a certain school should be asked to switch back, and I think we have to include siblings and flexibility in terms of cross-family.
Maybe to help us in the board of it is important to note that the committee themselves were given a directive in terms of what they were to explore and what the status quo. The committee never actually spoke to anyone on the status quo that existed. The mandate from the board was to speak for a modified status quo. So in fairness to the committee, they did exactly what I asked, which was modify status quo. So the document that we prepared, that we see today, shows status quo. And I'm looking quickly, my eyes are so bad I can't see how the numbers. I'm looking for how it's profoundly different. It doesn't appear to be. But in fairness to the committee, they never discussed status quo, everything being exactly the same. They moved from the board's directive to modify status quo in the very first meeting. So I would assume that that would catch both status quo 1.1 and 1.2 accurately, because they moved, as you said, on the understanding that status quo needed some tweaking, and they presented information that tweaked, modified what we haven't done. Didn't spend any time on leaving everything absolutely the same.
Anyone else have anything? Is there any, so, just for clarity, and really what we're talking about is modified status quo. Okay, so this one, is there anyone that does not feel we should consult the public on modified status quo? Okay, so we're all in agreement on that one. I think we are going to have to talk some more about the fine details of how, what we're going to put out there. For example, one of the recommendations from the committee was that we look at making Cumberland a sort of K-9 dual campus school. So obviously up there, it doesn't show how we would move those kids, what year they would be moved, and so forth. It doesn't talk about how we would consult with the community or anything like that. So the more sort of meat would have to be put in these bones before we can go out. So perhaps that would be some work for us to do over the summer to talk about that some more. So more that we should say about the small one before we move on to the next one. Okay, so we will consult on that. So 2.13 high schools, I've just put a highlight on there because just to highlight the fact that in this model it would be necessary to convert Quenisha to a middle school and to reopen the Glacier View as an elementary school, just to draw our attention to that. So does anyone want to make any comments with respect to this model?
May I just, before you go on modified status quo, I'm looking in the document around the board and staff work for a plan for public consultation, separate from board decision on which models to consult the public on. And when I think about something like the modified status quo, is it the board's intention to develop those models further along the lines of detail? For example, if the modified status quo includes an option for Cumberland to be K-9 dual campus, one of the really important questions in that is what happens to students at those. And so, as you develop models, do you want those as options A and B within a modified status quo or not? Because then a modified status quo could look like modified status quo move to secondary boundary. Comox students won't always go to Comox schools, whereas Aberdeen goes to ASC. So you couldn't have those students by boundary, but the boundary for secondary schools could be adjusted. That could be one option within modified status quo. The next one is Cumberland, K-9, and standalone, and the next one is including students from Royston and their impact. So I'm just wondering, as the board goes to develop even the modified status quo as a model, because it's simple, how do you anticipate that process unfolding in terms of then something to deliver to the public for the consultation? So that I understand what is the difference between the plan for consultation and the actual development of the model. That makes sense?
Yeah, for me personally, we need to honor the work of what the committee did. And so with respect to this is generally how they saw this model going. If we were to choose this one, that's right there. That's what it would be. I don't know if we chose this, how we would transition, in what year we would transition Quenisha to middle school. That would be something that would need to be developed. But there it is, I think. Same thing with the modified status quo. They were very thoughtful actually about the boundary issue with the high schools in Comox. We talked about McDonald Road, Anderton, and, you know, if it would be moved, and they talked about 125 kids would be in that area. If you adjusted the boundary, you could have 125 kids in Highland. So I think, I don't know that, I can't remember reading that actually in the report, but it was definitely discussed at the meeting, and I think anybody that was at the meeting would recall that. So I feel we have to honor their work and build our models based on what they said.
The one thing the community did was, the community stayed away from answering individual questions. They flagged the question, but they decided not to comment. So as you were to develop models, you're going to have to either present options around your big questions, like for example, or not. So it's just again how that unfolds. Because the community said in many cases, like you said to your team, you know, two are a common theme, but those are tough decisions, so we won't go there. So we'll just flank them in the report and then we'll move on. So it's just, you have to have a mechanism somehow to keep those.
I may say just one more thing, this is a reflection of the last board. I think that the mistake that we made on the last board was to be declarative about many of those things before we had an opportunity to ask the public what they thought about that. And so for me personally, I would like to see us do it differently. The committee has flagged Lake Trail as a school that will have some enrollment issues for the next 10 years. And that's reflected in every one of these models. To me, that's a thing that shows up time and time again, and sort of a separate thing to deal with. And I personally would like to weigh in on, but I think that we should keep Lake Trail open and closed. I would like to hear what the public has to say about that, because I sure don't know everything. We need to get instruction from all those people out there. So, Tom?
I too respect very much and want to honor the work of the community, but I also want to say that it isn't a whole lot of time. They scratched at the surface of a lot of things. And not their fault, it's just the time to deliver it. And while I agree that I don't want to, it would be wrong for the board to script it fully. I think there's a huge space in between scripting something and where we are now. I do believe that. And I guess that's what I sort of understood from the email Rollins earlier, that there, and so I actually climbed into what they're saying. As we move forward with this modified status quo, part of the work that will happen between now and consultation is giving the public something to wrestle with in terms of ideas, as opposed to, you know, Lake Trail has a capacity issue that I think really want to do address their question. I can't imagine myself in front of a room of people asking that question and making sense of it. So I guess I am seeing us reviewing very much direction. If you have to manage, fill in some of this stuff. Options, perhaps in places the options are singular, and others are maybe other ones, so multiple options.
Danny, is it time?
Okay, going back to the making clear that it's passed or rejected. This one I would reject. I think the committee itself has noted that it's the most disruptive of all the options that are out there. And I'm seeing that there's a possibility, if we move to each kind of place review, that we're looking for lease space for those programs that are currently offered down the place review now. So I think that proposed on that is part of the reason and rationale of consolidating all that stuff into place review was to stay away from those lease spaces.
One, I would agree with Danny on the reject this one. As I look, and two, in terms of capturing the issues about options or several options, maybe what we could do would be to have just the options as the committee presented them, but have issues to consider that management prepares, that when people are looking at the options and commenting, can at least be alerted to certain issues.
Anyone else want to say something on this? Cory?
Just looking over my notes from the time with Egypt as well. Our big issue is pollution and Kurdish. Those are two most vulnerable schools that I think we want to really research what they have, as well as three high schools down there. We could possibly be ending up with a non-driving elementary school. We would see most of the woods in the Sorry, my first point is to check this.
Anyone else?
I too would reject this model again, being the most disruptive. I also noted to myself that at least two of the high schools in this model appear to be significantly under capacity. And so to me not viable, but having been to Glacier View School in recent days, and seeing what's going on there, and having spoken to the principal, it would be, I would not have the stomach to do that. They have moved, I believe it's 4 times in 3 years. And something that stood out for me was when he said that great things are now possible there because they have all the programs to do. And these are the most vulnerable kids, and I'd like to see them have sense to them. For me, this model isn't really wrong.
Anyone else? I think. Okay, so we'll ask this one, move on to 2.2. 3 high schools for the 6 to 8 middle school. So let's start on this one.
I think that since this is the only 6 to 8 high school model, despite the challenges, I would like to give the public the opportunity to comment on it, because I do think that the prospect that all they care is out there, whether it's meters or far away, this may be a model that could address concerns related to that, despite the challenges, as pointed out by the committee, and maybe the public's appetite is exactly what the committee's concerns will be echoed by the public, but I think we should at least have it out there.
Anyone else?
So I'll take their opposing view. Again, I'm really boring. What I'm trying to do is pick the reasonable numbers in a computation. This particular one, and certainly in the narrative that's in the committee report, and a number of significant challenges. Which are set being real. I don't think that it's a viable solution to
Well, my initial thought was to reject it. I see those 3 high schools getting fairly small in numbers, and the program offering somewhat less than the number in Bloomfield. On that basis, they actually rejected all of the ones that had 3 high schools. But that's a point of discussion that we're going to throw it over. There is an applicant for would probably relieve some of the problems in the elementary school.
I would like to see the public have a conversation. I think 3 high schools are viable. I also like the 6, 7, 8 middle school model. I think in other districts, the 6 or 8 middle school model has been wonderful. That's a true middle school model, and I think we just have a conversation, whether it's viable or not. I don't know, we're talking about economics and money and other stuff, so it's a good conversation, please. That I would like us to look at, please.
So, probably considering our age, but I think we're way past conversation. You may not have meant just like having a conversation. I think that we're deciding to send something out there. We're deciding because we believe that there's a real bonafide chance or reason for doing it, not just flow. Once we did that, and see the technology of our work and through our early spring. So I think we've done that. We're at a different stage. We're putting this out to the community because we think this has got legs. It's not tell us community business.
Great. The mind would say they reject this one, and then when it's due to the red hat or something, recognizing schools to the potentials. One thing that was a bonus, but it's also negative, is information with church immersion as a middle school. I know I've heard stated that middle school model is not as beneficial as French immersion as and I think if we did go through to a middle school model, having it centralized, that's a big issue with French immersion, having it centralized is going to as well. We open clinician to the middle school and is placing it becomes a novel effect that's managed with I'm not comfortable with that.
I have a hard time with this one because as Brian said, it is a 6-7-8 option. There are a lot of problems associated with it, but I think we could probably fix. But waiting to see how it plays in probably hard to schools. This is the one I was trying to put
So for me, I think I would like to put this one up to the public because a lot of people earlier this year did say that they were interested in this model. I think that there are some real challenges to overcome with this, not the least of which would be converting Queenish into a middle school. Look at Queenish actually today and know that I had thought the school would be completely stripped of all middle school things. It hasn't been, much to my surprise, so that kind of helped me with my thinking a little bit. But also walking through Queenish today gave me an opportunity to walk through an elementary school that has enough space for all kids in it. And so I couldn't help but think about Cumberland Yell, where we're cramped for space. And, thinking about that little table by the back door that kids had their reading through the school was so full. But at Queenish, there are lots of room in the art room for us that they can use it, which is pretty fantastic. So did cause me to think a little bit more about space. So I would like to do a couple of things about this one. It clearly is with some challenges. I don't know in this one if it makes sense to keep Vanier Lake Trail and Cumberland Junior all open. Maybe at some point in the future, if the public thought we should go with this model, we would be talking again in a few years about maybe closing one of those schools and consolidating. I don't know. There are some challenges, but I would like to hear what the next say about this one. So I make it 4-2 on this one, which I decided. Okay, so go ahead and vote on this one. So we've already rejected 2.3, I believe. Okay, so two so far that we're gonna consult on modified status quo, and 3 high schools and 6 to 8 middle schools. Next one is 3.1, 2 high schools with Vanier and Isabel being high schools, and 7 to 9 middle schools. Anyone want to start on this one? Yes?
Well, I think that we have a consultation. I'm uncomfortable with identifying now which school we're going to look at. I mean, whether we do Vanier Isabel or Vanier Highland, I think to look at 2 high school with a 7-9 middle school would be then I prefer that, because that way we're not pre-decided, decisions are being made. So I'd rather take the name of a high school out and do 2 high schools with a 7-9 middle school model if we're going to do that consultation. Otherwise, we'll identify high school by saying Vanier Isabel or Vanier Highland. I'm not comfortable with either one of those options, the way it comes out at the moment.
Okay. Anyone else?
I agree, I'd like to do the high schools with 7, 8, 9 middle school.
Just sort of a generic thing? Okay, great.
I don't know that we can do a generic thing because there are different implications depending on which high school you keep. There are different costs involved, different schools that can be open or shifted or things like that. So I think you almost have to identify the schools.
I agree, and much like I said before, I think we're way past the, let's keep this general. Decisions to apply something, allow for it, it will must focus consultation. We leave it general and there. Whatever you further than that,
I disagree with Danny that at our restructuring committee meetings, we did discuss scenarios of Vanier, Highland Israel. A good time. We have to have names attached to it, because there are different implications to each scenario.
I also think we should narrow it, because then that will get us to where we would ask the committee to take us in terms of modified status quo, a 3 secondary school option and a 2 secondary school option, which I think will ultimately be easier for the public. The committee recognized a number of challenges with both of the secondary school options, and those challenges can be fleshed out further by the public once we consult. There seem to be more positive aspects to the Vanier Island option, so I would simply choose that one and look for that. If the public doesn't have an appetite for that, they'll tell us.
Yes. I don't see us taking both those options out, so we have to take one or the other. I can agree with Ray, but I think then they kind of, this felt, I think, built with the high school, that history was converted to a senior high school.
I agree too. I would go with the Vanier Highlands. It is less disruptive. With the Vanier Isabel, we have to again convert the niche to middle school, reopen Glacier View. We're going to have to include alternate programs again. It's more disruptive than the other, and I would put
I agree with that. Well, first one consultation, two.
So I will go enjoy that. I don't agree with that. So, but I don't think we should identify a high school too. I mean, that's not just something on this thing. So I don't agree with that today.
That's fair. Just a question. We've talked about this at various times, and the sticker things to employees. The committee done a nice job and just wanted to say the challenges, the advantages to certain things. Money reference to all that. That would be my expectation of the next government like states. What you saw there,
And that's why, that's why it's things for us to be as specific as possible. Because for Kim, we need more active on when we calculate a report with ballpark figures like cost to go one of these areas or the other, but more specifically we need to model.
I agree. I don't think I would want to consider this. This one is really disruptive. No, not that one. 3.1 is really disruptive. One of the things in there was, again, difficulties for the Valley View population, which I think in this one, if I remember correctly, would have them splitting and then splitting again. So for middle school, some would go to Highlands, some would go to Corniche, and then high school. Some of the Corniche kids, I think, are going to go to Vandyville, and some are going to go to Isabel. That doesn't make much sense to me. And the cost of reopening Glacier View, I think, is probably substantial. We have an opportunity to go, actually, Karina and I, for a look there. Jeff was kind enough to give us a tour, and that really is quite an amazing facility. It feels really good to see those classrooms for all the kids in our alternate programs can go there, and they're able to figure out which program is best for them. And Jeff said that 12 kids graduated this year. That's pretty cool. And also all the resources that we've brought in. I was really pleased to see that we made good use of that. So it doesn't make any sense to me to dismantle the whole thing and send it out into new space. So for me, I could not consider this one, I don't think. And I would consider the 7.9. Danny, I don't know.
So just wanted to get back to a point that Lori made around the French immersion being in middle school circumstance of Phoenician, that's not recognized in the situation. In this scenario, this one would be in middle school, so that I want to call some engineers that might have in the report, but I think it's the same. It's the same job. Same concept.
Okay, so I guess then those would be the three models that we'll proceed a consultation with. So 1. Really it's option 1, is what it's called in the report. Status quo. 2.2 and 3.2. So Alan, if you could just put the last slide up there. I thought there will be some more work and discussion that will need to take place over the summer, and I thought we could probably accomplish this just with committee work with Jordan and Sherry and whoever else they think makes sense, obviously Len. But we need to make some decisions about who are we going to consult on these options. I wondered about how to make it the sort of the safest and how people not hitting each other if possible. And I wondered, if we could host an event where we talk to students in the afternoon, and then after dismissal, maybe all the teachers could come. We could talk to teachers from that school and feeder schools, and maybe that evening we could talk to the parents and the general public that all feed into that school. Maybe hold 3 meetings, but I don't know, that's just my idea. Hopefully you guys will give that some thought too, to see what would make sense. Talk about how we might do the formal piece of the consultation, the in-person, who would run the meetings, what information would we provide, that sort of the meat on the bones piece that we need to talk about for the summer. Would we do something like have a blog or Facebook thing, or what would we do? I know Shelley's daughter mentioned the Facebook idea. Great. We should consider something like that. So, lots of stuff for us to talk about.
So, I mentioned the last time, and I think it was the time before that, having been sort of on that side of the table for these discussions there, what I've always been challenged with is I'm really not sure sort of what I'm being asked. We're going to be given information, and I'm not sure the expectation of each individual participant or you to sort of challenge or discreetly find or puzzle things out. So for me, what I'm looking for is real clarity around what the ask is. The ask of the you can't be completely, I mean, it's kind of embedded. We'll get that anyway, but if one of the things, we'll just get that we think it's great things. But I think it really needs to be instructive without being prescriptive. If that makes sense. I really do think we need to provide some prompts for the discussion, for the questions, for the information that we're hoping to get. The public is free to get their pound of flesh on us at any point. So that's their privilege for the electorate or risk elected officials. To make this a due process, we really need to provide some clarity around what's the act. What do we really ask? It's a show of hands where the majority of really allow us just to do this.
I agree with Tom on that. Being on the other side there is that the clarification, understanding what needs to be said, asked, and having some sort of parameters and understanding, I think is very imperative, especially going forward on this, because people have to know what to ask, what's expected of them, and we need to be open and hearing on that conversation. So I think going and knowing what to expect rather than going in the unknown to me is more important. Is when we go to a meeting, have it laid out, have a framework and understanding where we want to go and we want to see, we want to hear ahead of the meeting. I think it's beneficial. That's just my perspective. I've seen some of the meetings in the past. It's the unknown and what do you want to talk about, and that free and open, people, emotions get wild, and in that setting we want to have facts. You can leave the emotions are going to be very, very, I think, are going to be something that are going to be, this district is split apart, in my opinion. I mean, I've heard from many people over the last 24 years, every time this district does a change, and I've been through a number of changes, especially with boundary changes, school changes, and that, and how do you represent that to the public in a caring and compassionate manner. And I think that we need to move forward in a caring and compassionate manner, especially with the conversations we're going to have with the public. And our phone numbers are in the book, and we're on email, and people can get a hold of us anytime they want. So if you have an open door policy.
Sherry Elwood looks across the room. Yeah, she says, well, okay, for clarification for us, is that really the question is really from you to us. What information do we really need? So you had a written consultation process in early January, February, and you had a ad hoc committee give to your report and do that work. And so as you move on to your deliberations, how is it that we can construct models, templates, constructive performing plans that are consistent and universal, so that people can come to a meeting prepared? I think that's what you're speaking to. So, but what is it that you need, or how do you presume that you will gather as a board all of the information that we might be able to construct into boxes for you, and how will you process that? If you can tell us that, or give us some ideas about how that might look for you, then we can help you design a process for consultation. Really, the question is from us to you: what is it that you need to make your final deliberations? How does that information need to be presented to you? And what kind of breadth of consultation do you believe you would like to have, or have some surety about when you make your final deliberation? Because we've had a couple of processes that I'm assuming you're taking you to some place of understanding for the final piece, which is what you
Yeah, I think that's what we have to establish this summer before we roll out a consultation process. Because there is the concrete stuff about what does the model look like. There's other stuff that I'm curious about. For example, the concept of cohort size. We talked about that. It isn't it. So when you have a cohort of 130, I'd like to know from teachers, do you think that that's going to mean you're going to be teaching a fourth grade split in art? And if you're going to do that, how is that going to work? Can you do that? will it work? What does it mean? Are we going to be able to deliver a full program or not? I would like to hear directly from people with respect to that. I want to know from parents, what programs do you think you value kids? What do you need in order to be successful when you go on to an entry-level job somewhere after high school, or you're going to go to college or university? What sort of programs are you interested in, and can we construct those for you in these models? Other things I'm wondering about overcapacity schools. There's only so many ways you can fix them. I think I make the list 4. I'd like to know if the public wants to put more portables there. Do they want us to change the boundaries? Do they want us to build an addition? Or do they want us to take some grades out of the school and move them somewhere else through grade structure changes? So those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in hearing from the public. What are the community's values around these things? I'm an elected official. I have to represent the public, so I need to know what their values are so I know how to vote. So that's sort of my thoughts about that. Anyone else? Dan?
Well, I guess for me, you kind of half hit it on the head, is what's best for the student in the end run? What programs can we provide that will set them up for the job market in the future? You're going to have to divorce themselves from a building or a grade structure in order to take a look at what's the best way to provide the programs and the education they're going to need.
One thing I forgot in there with my little list is, a lot of the discussion around middle schools was people's beliefs around, do grade 7s belong in elementary school or middle school? Should grade 8s be in a middle school or in a high school? Well, we've had a year now with this sort of hybrid model. We don't have a single transition model. We have, junior schools in one part of the district and one transition in the other. I would like to hear from them now after a year of living with this. What do you think? Are you happy with this? Would you like a change? I suspect we'll hear these things. I've gotten some feedback already on some of these issues by going to Vanier one day after the report was released and talking to some teachers out there. People on the street are already weighing in on this, so already people are talking about it. So, yeah. Thomas.
So getting back to your question, and tying in Susan's accurate observation at the outset about honoring the work that was done by the committee, I think that's a perfect starting point. Each one of the points that is made by the committee that they made in a relatively short period of time have lots of opportunities to be fleshed out, not only from a dollars and cents standpoint, but from a staffing impact standpoint.
It's 20 hours.
Parameter standpoint. What do you got on? You want to Google it or something?
No, I've got my notes. Yeah.
But I also, and again, I sort of will declare sort of my bias around the process. I think there's always a risk of paralyzing the process with way too much interest. Trying to find that nice spot, because I don't want to sit in front of a room of people or sit with people whose eyes glaze over with all this data, because then that will become the theme. They just confused us. They snuck stuff through because they threw all these other numbers as smoke screens. So there's part of the art in what we have to sort of figure out over the next couple of months. And I think, and I say this respectfully, of when one presents options, we all have leanings, right? All of us have leanings, and it's really, really important that when we present the material and how it's presented clean, and there isn't nobody can point at anything and say, well, it's pretty clear that whoever wrote this or whoever's presenting this has this order of leaning, because then that will scuttle the process, and we'll lose whatever goodwill exists or remains. I don't know if that answers your question.
No. Turn?
Can I just ask for some clarity around this piece? It says summer work up there, and it says events like a student forum. Are you implying that we're designing the student forum through the summer, or are we probably hosting it in the summer? I'm just trying to figure out what September 8th looks like, which was the designated date for the brigade. Like, what would you have in hand on the 8th and be presenting at that time? Just looking to interpret that.
I'm thinking that through the summer, we won't always all be able to meet and participate. We have holidays and so forth going on. So the most number of us possible would contribute to developing this in a way probably that makes sense to you. And that on September the 8th, we would have something to present to the board and say, here's what the consultation would look like. And do we want to do any tweaking right now? Are you happy with the information that we've developed? Here's how we think we do it. Sort of a final tweaking, and then proceed from there. So really, it should be pretty much ready to go by September the 8th.
And when you say on the 8th, here's what the consultation looks like, that is simultaneous with, here are 3 models with options attached to those, or issues to be considered, and points of conversation or prompts for the public, potentially for their feedback to those models. Because my experience with the consultations prior, all of them, like years and years, is that the public is more engaged as the public has more details. And so, if you're right, you want to walk the balance between not swamping people with information, yet giving people enough information so that they can actually see how the model will unfold, what exactly or reasonably it would look like for their child if they were in grade 4 or grade 9. So, it's helpful.
There's a lot of good information in the report already. They identified challenges and pros and cons and comments, and there's a lot, I think a lot of the information that we need is already there. It's just fleshing it out a little more. Okay, so can we carry on? We don't pay you overtime, do we?
The grade structure committee report is not likely to see the light of day in its substance again. Like if you're going to develop models and use comments from it and attach to those bones, then what is going to appear on the 8th will likely be different. Is it your wish that it be the grade structure report and models and then issues to consider, or is this a metamorphosis to a new document for the 8th? Just wondering about the future of that report.
My idea, frankly, is it's a metamorphosis to a new document, something that's sort of easier, like an executive summary kind of thing, easier to understand, but using the information that the committee produced.
And I agree, it doesn't devalue the document.
No.
Just like the documents that have preceded it, going back years, are still referenced and have relevance in terms of the information that they contain.
Lori?
I was basically a citizen in this talk. I'd like to see us use that report as the baseline and build our options off of that. There was a lot of good information on that. And just looking back at the notes that I made, there's a lot of questions that were brought up that I'd never thought of. And it was interesting to hear some of those questions being thrown out there. And it's things that we haven't stopped to think about when we're looking at every option available.
Agree. Thomas?
Can I ask just a question? Maybe it's of you and of all of us as well. And this is in terms of what information you provide. One of the points that was made by the committee around a large middle school is it's not the first time that we've heard that. We heard that when we had large middle schools, like Gordon Middle Center. Is it the board's expectation that as part of the information package that is spoken to, or is that are we just looking at straight facts? In other words, are we just looking at how much it costs, what it will impact on people, or are we also wanting some comment around here's the upside for having 750 kids in a middle school versus not? I'm just curious. because it's a theme, or it's something that's been raised in here and raised in other discussions as well. Do we comment on that as part of our?
For me personally, the committee did weigh in on that, and I think they recommended that that was not such a good thing to have a larger one. So sort of in my head, what I thought is, then maybe the public has an alternative. Do they think that, in one of the models, move French immersion to Lake Trail School, for example? Is that something they would suggest?
So if I may then, just to go back to the metamorphosis question, then as we move from this document into the next, it really is taking all of the comments that are relative to the 1.2s, the 2.2s, and the 3.2s and bringing them forward. So that'll be captured that way.
They should be, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think we should, Madam Secretary Treasurer, provide a motion on this? We probably should.
You should.
Okay, so yes,
You should affirm the model that you want to look at.
the
And
motion,
you want to direct staff specifically about what you want us to do regarding that, create a document together. Director,
we will have two motions, eh?
I think we'll need three.
That the board, something like the board proceed to consult the public on modified status quo, 3 high schools with 6 to 8 middle schools, and Vanier Highland 2 high school model with 7 to 9 middle schools.
So moved.
Did you say so moved?
I said so moved.
Does anybody want to second that?
For discussion?
Okay.
So when we went through it, we weren't unanimous on all of them, so I wonder how that gets captured in bundling them, or does it? I mean, I didn't support all 3 of them, but I'm content to say fine, but it just seemed like that was inconsistent.
the only way to do that would be in seriatim, each individual model.
Well, that's-
You would have to pass a motion on option 1, and then someone could record their vote if they didn't agree, and then the next option that you want to consult on, you could do it that way.
It just, if I may, it just feels more consistent with the conversation that we had leading up to the.
Then we should really vote 7 times, have 7 separate motions on each one of the models, and then carry or defeat each single one. So what you could do at this point is, if you have a motion on the floor that's been seconded, you could request that it be split, and then we could vote on those separately, if you wish.
Just move right, withdraw the motion.
Okay. Is there anyone opposed to the motion being withdrawn? Okay, good. So, let's go with then, somebody should make a motion that the board proceed to consult the public on the modified status quo model.
I still need to make a motion that we consult the public on the status quo motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, somebody want to make a motion on 3 high schools, 7 to 9 middle schools? I think we need to vote on every one of them. And defeat the ones we don't want to.
I'll move the motion. I'll move the motion.
You're moving a motion that the board proceed to consider 3 high schools with 7 to 9 middle schools?
Second for discussion.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is defeated. Similar motion with respect to 3 high schools and 6 to 8 middle schools?
I make a motion that we consult with the 3 high school, 6 to 8 middle school model, please.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And you do have the option of recording your negative vote if you so wish. The next one is 3 high schools with 2 grade middle schools. Do you want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second for discussion.
Okay, Any discussion? All those in favor of considering that model? Against? That is defeated. Thank you. 3.1 Vanier Isfeld was 7 to 9 middle schools.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of considering this model? Opposed? And that is defeated. Vanier Highland was 7 to 9 middle schools.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of consulting on this model? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. So I think that takes care of all of the motions. I think that what we probably need to do is convene another liaison meeting to talk about exactly how we're going to go about constructing what happens for September the 8th, and kind of take it from there. Well, I know a lot of people are on holidays. We'll do our best to schedule a liaison meeting when most of us can be here, and just for the public's information, should talk about what a liaison meeting is that monthly we meet with the secretary and the superintendent and senior staff to talk about various things that are going on in the district. We did have one of those meetings last week to talk about how we would have the meeting this evening, essentially to set the agenda for this evening's meeting and to talk about the process we would go through with respect to how we proceed with the report. So where we came to was deciding that we would like to try to distill the list down to a few options. We didn't talk about what options people were for or against. We thought we would best leave that for a public discussion, so that's how we end up being here tonight talking about this. So again, we will not be at these meetings talking about what individual board members are in favor of or not, which model we favor. It'll be about process. What information do we need? What would we like to give to the public? And that'd be that. Okay. So we'll now move on to new business. Suspension of July and August regular board meetings.
Move that the board dispense with holding regular board meetings between July 17th, 2009 and September 1st, 2009.
Second. I'm betting you guys would second this one if you could.
I noted it didn't say special.
What's that? No, that's right. Yeah. Sorry. You can try to make an amendment. I couldn't accept it. But. Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, so thanks. We'll see you in September, but not before we have an opportunity for some questions and answers from the public and from the media. Does the media have any questions? More stuff?
So, just to make sure I'm clear, I guess then, the next step here is over the summer to flesh out some of the, I guess, implications of the auction.
I think we have most of that information already contained in the report. We need to put it in a format that would work for a public consultation to make it easy to understand. There's some information that definitely needs to be added. For example, two of the models that we have consider changing an existing school into a different grade structure. So we would probably, I think, need to flesh that out a little bit about how that would work so the public would know.
So I wonder if, just a little bit, when I do this, you could just tell me some of the kinds of things that might be added, like obviously costs and that sort of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
What else?
Costs, staff implications, boundaries, yeah, we talked about that to some degree, yeah.
Potential schools to change their grade structure,
Yeah,
movement of French immersion, portables, potential closures or not.
yeah. Thank you. You have more there? That's the list?
Buses, transportation.
Yeah, transportation, yeah.
And the transition process.
And the actual, one of the most important parts will be what it actually looks like. Well, one of the things never reported in the committee, and the committee back again didn't have all the time, is what does the actual implementation look like and in what year?
So you not only have to develop a model, then you have to decide, okay, in 2012 it looks like this, and in 2013 it looks like this. And there are many different ways, or not many, but there are different ways to implement it, so you have to come up with what you feel is the most educationally sound in terms of an implementation for each model. And then probably as well, suggestions for consultation processes for the subtexts, like Cumberland, Lake Trail, Royston, French immersion,
Brooklyn.
Cape Cod.
And some of our smaller elementary schools, depending where you are.
Any other further questions from the media? No, public? Janice?
I'd like to ask each board member and have them give an answer. Do you feel that you're giving senior staff enough time to work on this by September 8th, and then you feel there's going to be sufficient time to really consult the public about the public feeling once again rushed?
I think that we wouldn't have passed a motion this evening if we didn't feel that it was feasible to do that. Obviously, we'll have a public consultation and we'll see what the public has to say about this in the fall. And as I said earlier, I'm not sure exactly what decision we're going to make on October 27th. We'll make a decision about something. I think it's going to depend on what we hear from the public.
So each board member is agreed that there is sufficient time for all this to take place?
I think you could safely assume that. I didn't really hear anybody state otherwise, and I'm not going to have them hold on this one. Is there any further questions?
With the government announcing that taxes collected from us citizens and corporations are down so much and having to make drastic cuts, we're talking about cutting health care, I'm assuming that there could be cuts in education. How can we feasibly sit here and discuss disrupting our students, disrupting our teachers, and spending money that we may not necessarily have? I don't think all of the electorate fully understands the financial implications for our province of all this. I just don't see that how, several months ago you said, if we don't think this is really doable, we're not going to push ahead. I've never seen anybody pause, but except for Lori, she did question it a couple meetings ago, that she was taken aback by what was on the agenda.
So if your question is how do we think we might proceed with this, we're getting some more information from our staff. The provincial government will release their budget on September the 1st. We are aware that there are some cuts. We've already experienced some cuts to our annual facilities grant. And then we'll put the information out to the public and see what the public, who are really our employers, think about this.
But if the money's not there,
Then that will be part of the report that we put out to the public. Is there another question from the public? Ellen?
I guess I'm struggling a little bit to understand how we got from the point where the committee member started this report to paring down those options for tonight. I know that on the evening that the report was submitted, there was a comment made that let's put all these to rest until September, and then on September 8th, we began the consultation about it. And I was quite surprised, even arriving at the committee tonight, to come to the realization that we were going to eliminate some of those options. And I would go so far to say, as having been one of the individuals who sat on the committee and devoted 32 hours of my time to that, even more surprised to see the limited debate and discussion and the total 45 minutes being spent for the public to see what we determined to be important enough factors to come up with the proposal. And I'm wondering, in light of that, it suggests to me that there have been some discussions potentially at the superintendent liaison meeting that we had last week, and I appreciate the need to have a process and involve some of the staff. I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what exactly transpired at the meeting last week, and whether there was an understanding that we would in fact be paring down those options tonight. Because I'm quite surprised that of the nature of the discussion, particularly in light of the fact that the report says quite clearly, and I quote, "It was extremely difficult to gauge specific costs. This is critical, detailed, and specialized work that is, with board direction, better left to appropriate district staff for analysis. The committee has no specific costs were known and indicated the costs are individualized." I did not hear any member of the board question the superintendent and the assistant superintendent about costs, and they eliminated several options. So I'm left to wonder whether there were discussions around this at last week's liaison meetings, and if there have been other discussions that occurred other than in public forum, or the budget before has been informed, because I'm not seeing kind of detailed discussion about what we think would be incumbent upon the board making those kind of decisions.
Well, I think what you've seen is that we have relied on the report that was submitted to us to a huge extent. We've trusted that the information that came to the board was well thought out and discussed, and I think that those of us that were sitting in as observers at the committee would easily say that that was the case. There was good information come to us, help us with our thinking on a lot of things. We have some respect for the time that it would take our staff to more fully develop the costs with respect to these models. And I don't think you or I would like to see them spend a lot of time fleshing out a model that at the end of the day was not viable according to what was said in the report or what the board thought. So I think it was incumbent on us to eliminate some models that we weren't prepared to go ahead on. Imagine the time it would take to have Len Ibbs figure out what the cost would be of converting Glacier View back into an elementary school, to doing the research to figure out how much it would cost to lease space for all of the things that go on in there. I think that we have great respect for their time, and so it was important for us to pare this list down. We didn't talk about which options we thought were most viable or not. Just that we should pare the list down, and that was the discussion that you've seen this evening. I think you sat on the committee, you know as well as I that some of those options just really aren't that feasible. And I can't imagine somebody thinking that we should proceed to consider them. So for me, it's not much to say. You just reject it and on we go. So I hope that answers your question. Does anyone else have a question? Mark?
My question, I guess, is around any discussions the board had in terms of the impact that this will have on, I guess, fellow staff as soon as this gentleman is to report his newspapers. Because when, again, being someone who sat on the committee and looking at the three models that the board has selected to move forward with, to be honest, like Trustee Weber said, I don't believe the 6-8 on it has legs, and there are serious financial reasons why that is very difficult, let alone how it impacts elementary schools and elementary schools. So really now what we're coming down to is what many of us have kind of seen coming for some time, and that is a good old-fashioned showdown between the modified status quo and the Highland and two-secondary model. So I'm just thinking ahead, because I am part of that school community, to what the board thinks they can do proactively, because we're now in summer. This is going to hit the papers. Students, staff, administration at that school will see the writing on the wall, and we'll now have 6-7 weeks to, I guess, be very concerned about the future of this school. So I'm wondering what the board is prepared to do in the next week, in terms of mitigating the damage that I believe will result as due to this new plan.
I think what you've seen this board do is proceed very thoughtfully and compassionately where staff and parents and students have been concerned. Since we've been elected, we've had a budget to consider. I don't want to say that we've spent money incorrectly, but we were very thoughtful in our budget process to not disrupt things to a huge degree in our district. And so that's been sort of our backdrop to everything we do, is to have the least amount of disruption and to be as compassionate and caring about our staff as we can be. In the weeks and months leading up to this discussion paper coming to us, we made trips to various staff rooms. We did go to the ISFELD staff room and we sat with the staff and we heard what they had to say. We truly heard what they had to say and we listened with both ears. Every trustee that could be there was there. I think that we made an impression on them that this is a board that actually really does care what they have to say. We do want to hear what they have to say and we'll act on that. We've got 2 other high schools with staffs that I think might have some similar opinions, but also different opinions. So this is why my idea is that we can construct a consultation process so people can honestly tell us what they think without fear of getting heckled by somebody who differs with their opinion. So I don't know what more we can do about that. The board certainly hasn't made a decision about what we're going to do. If you add this up, if we do decide to make a change, it's not going to be quick. We don't have access to buildings and space and so forth that we would need to enact a change, so nothing is really substantially going to happen, I don't think. We have time to really hear what people have to say and to integrate that information. We've been demonstrating that that's how we are as a board, and I don't see that changing.
So my question is still, how are you going to mitigate that damage? Because what I see happening is that those people are going to want to enter into this process right away, and this board is going to establish that process. They're not going to want to wait 7 or 8 weeks. So that is my concern.
Yeah, I understand. It would be a concern, absolutely. All I can say is we're proceeding the best we can with this information based on feedback from an entire district, not just from one school, and we're doing the best we can, Mark. Shelley?
Follow up on Mark's thing. When you met with the ISFELD staff, you made just a split off the handcuff comment, but when you met with the staff, you were told that some of the teachers told you that the halls were too crowded. When I made inquiries at the school about that, because I was a little bit surprised, they were not pleased that that's what you took from it. There was teachers there who were almost in tears.
There were teachers actually that cried when we were there.
Yeah.
There were teachers that started out being very angry. They thought that a decision had been made, and I was very glad that we could listen to their concerns and to assure them the decision has not been made.
So put comments about, oh, they said the halls were too crowded. You didn't say that they were very passionate, that they were almost in tears.
Yeah, is there?
It refers to Mark. How are you going to deal with the staff? If that's how they felt, you give us an answer like that, how does that make the staff?
Since we were elected on November the 15th, we've been working very hard to ensure that people know that we listen to what they have to tell us and that we really do care. I don't see that changing. They know that we're here to talk to. We get feedback even in summer holidays from people. It's the best we can do, Shelley. Anyone else have a final question? Shanna? I think, by the way, in the future, probably what we'll do is this is not really intended to be a dialogue. What we're going to do is limit it to 1 question per person in the future so we can proceed along sort of a little quicker. So Shanna, your last question?
Just a quick question. Wanting to know whether you could disclose the amount of the price tag on the operational radio.
No. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks very much. We'll see you on September the 8th, I'm quite sure. And have a motion to adjourn. Second? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.